look at procurement ethics, which is a very small topic under this. Ethics refers to the moral principles and values that governs our action, beliefs, and decision. It is a framework of distinguishing between right and wrong. We have ethics on how people or how staff should behave in an organization. And basically, we are going to look at the procurement ethics. Ethical code of conduct, of course, these are written standards that are documented to help guide the behavior of staff within an organization. In our written definition, it says a formal policy document that sets standards for ethical behavior within an organization. What are the contents that are included in this ethical code of conduct? It mentions how gifts have to be accepted, meals, pleasure trips, dealing with sales representatives, how you should handle quotations and tenders. Ethical code of conduct also talks of managing confidential information. So most of the points that are always included in the policy or in the ethical code of conduct are those, mostly for the procurement department. The importance of ethics in procurement and supply. Why is it important to have this ethics in place to control large sum of money, major outflow of funds? It will help us to control how money has to be used. It's more connected to the first point which I mentioned. That's why it's just a recap. That's why just a summary based relating to procurement. So it helps us to control the flow of money, how money has to go out, who approves how much should to be used to buy what product, what committee has to be set to approve a procurement of a certain item, and the finance that has to be paid, who approves that money. It helps us to determine supplier selection. Also, it is the ethical code of conduct will also, because they have the policies that will lay out how suppliers have to be selected. It also helps to build long-term supplier relationship and trust. Suppliers will, for example, let's say a supplier that does not get the contract will not have issues because he knows the buyer followed the really ethical code of conduct. Or the suppliers also themselves sometimes sign this ethical code of conduct because they also have their own ethical code of conduct as a procurement standard. Purchasers face higher exposure to unethical temptation. Ethical lavish, compromise objectives and decision making also is another importance of ethical code of conduct. Professional credibility depends on ethical integrity. Professional credibility also is another important, is another tool or is another point that is forced because of the availability of ethical code of conduct. We look at the benefits here again, let's look at the benefits, which is the same. Let me just read through that. Guides company values and workplace culture. These are more connected to what I just explained. Clarifies expectation for stakeholders. Helps avoid legal disputes. Ethical code of conduct will help us. It will help us to avoid to be sued because we have them in existence, as I mentioned before. Promote open communication, encourages mutual respect. There is respect between each other because we know how we should talk to each other, how we should conduct business. Determine ethical boundaries and behaviors, of course, connected to the upper one. It will help us to know my limit. What am I not supposed to say to so and so? It is very important. Provide consistent decision-making guidelines, how decisions has to be made. Before a decision is made, maybe there's a conflict between staff. Before a decision is made, what has to be done? Corporate ethics, this is another subtopic. Corporate ethics are corporate ethics are value-based statements and behavioral guidelines issued by a government. The purpose They guide decision and behavior to align with companies' principles and societal expectation. Principles of ethical behavior in procurement. How do procurement staff should behave? Professionally should maintain integrity in all relationships, respect improper, reject improper practices, avoid personal gains. I'm just going to go through this because most of this we have explained them. Promote contempts in their team, whereby people feel comfortable, satisfied, and all that. Use the resource efficiently for organization benefit, because that's another principle of ethical behavior in procurement. Comply with the national laws, professional guidelines, and contractual obligation. These are what the contract lays. So as a procurement department, they must comply with what was agreed in the contract process. Ethical guidelines and applications, declaration of interests. Everyone must declare his interests in the procurement process. For example, you are conducting a procurement process and one of the supplier who owns a company who intends to participate is related to you. So this interest must be declared. Secondly, confidentiality. Never misuse confidential information. This is very important for procurement. Competition. Avoid anti-competitive practices. As procurement, suppliers must be given freedom to compete. Never give or never aid a supplier in preparing a proposal. When you aid, already you are reducing the competitiveness of the supplier, because maybe by giving him a price, maybe by telling him how exactly the proposal must look like, or a quotation, there already you are reducing the competitiveness. Business gifts. Procurement officers must avoid business gifts that are always offered by suppliers. This gifts depends. If it's a normal business gifts like a calendar or pens, not those normal promotional. But when a gift is personalized, then when a gift is to influence the procurement officer's decision in judging during evaluation, then it must be avoided. Hospitality, manage openly and avoid excess. Don't take too much hospitality from the suppliers. Someone hosts you, buys you drink, treats you special. This could also affect the procurement process. Honesty and openness. Procurement officers are expected to be honest and open and be truthful and fair. Conflict of interest, always avoid disclosure of information. I mentioned that. Another point, that is a repetition, sorry. There's payment. Follow lawful and fair payment practice. The way payment has to be done must be the right way. If it's a bank transfer, it must be done the bank transfer. There must be no other way of payment. Then lastly, the other ethical guideline that must be followed by procurement is what we call the green procurement, whereby every procurement activity must protect the environment. So basically, those are most of the ethical practices expected of the procurement officers. In the summary, ethical guidelines conduct in procurement and professional roles. Ethics guide conduct in procurement and professional roles. As we've been following some of those ethical guidelines or principles, they are mostly to guide the procurement process so that they act in a professional way. Ethical codes protect integrity and public trust. Corporate and personal reliability go hand in hand. So all of them, they bring the two together and they move hand in hand. Then professional standards are necessary for credibility, efficiency, and compliance as the last point. So, dear students, this marks the end of this lecture on procurement and principles of procurement and logistics management. So with this, I would say thank you so much. Always there will be, if you have questions, always the numbers of the lecturers will always be available for you to inquire and ask any question that you might be having, depending on any topic that you could be facing a challenge. And I think I would say thank you so much for attending and have a good time. Thank you.